I will be talking about how to deliver software in cloud-native fashion and what it means and how to get there, basically, because it's not exactly easy. Maybe it's more difficult than it seems. I don't know how many of you, actually, if you could help me, just raise your hands if you're working for a company that has more than 100 developers. Awesome, awesome. So I apologize to the small guys. Most of the topics I will be talking about is actually tailored to, let's say, bigger companies. So who am I? Well, 44. It does not maybe look like that, but it does. I have started a long time ago. Started in the US, failed, then some startups, then some bigger US companies, and learn how complicated organizational structure actually can be and how software delivery can be difficult when you work across multiple time zones and with multicultural teams. Then IBM, a lot of digital transformation gigs in various industries. And 10 years ago, we are actually celebrating 10 years with Stratox Enterprises, and we focus mainly on everything cloud native. So advisory, how to actually change things, then professional services, how to deliver stuff. And CodeNow is something that we have seen that most of the companies are solving over and over the same kind of problems. And then we thought, well, if it is a commodity, then it should be a product. We were lucky to work for several companies, and I hope that they are happy to have us. So why cloud native? What it means anyway? Basically, software has been in development for tens of years nowadays. Some of the software was not architected with cloud infrastructure in mind. And then, you know, the lift and shift kind of things, we will drop the hardware in our data center and just buy hardware from somebody else. Well, that proved that, well, in many cases, it does not deliver the value, you know. So why? Well, because the software has to be architected with cloud infrastructure in mind. And such architected software could be then called cloud native. Does everything has to be cloud native? No. Actually, short answer, no. When I should consider some portions of my IT systems to be moved to cloud and to be designed and delivered as a cloud native thing, well, time to market is definitely one of the drivers. There are most likely business stakeholders in your company that are more pushy on deadlines, on changes, and they are making new ideas. They want to prototype them, they want to validate them, and then they change their mind. So time to market. Some systems like ERPs, typically the system of record systems, you know, which has a long lifespan, you can happily run them on-prem. I mean, that's no shame. You typically do not have tens of change requests coming to such systems monthly. Cost effectiveness. Not all IT systems and not all workload within your company most likely have a static kind of a characteristic of usage. If you are operating e-commerce within a single time zone or close time zones, you most likely have a very little traffic during, I don't know, midnight till 4 a.m. Why should I be actually paying for infrastructure at that time? It can have various reasons. So the load characteristics of the software actually says how I can optimally allocate resources. And if the software is not designed in a way so it can deallocate, well, then you have a big problem. Then you have cloud which you are actually using as a static infrastructure, which makes little to no sense. Location transparency is, well, maybe business scaling and addressing different portions of planet, you know, as of now is not a topic, but you never know. Maybe your company will be successful, and suddenly 2 years down the road, somebody will come and say, how can we get to Asia Pacific, you know? And then if you have an IT system that has been under development for 5 years, well, typically it takes some time, you know? And the last thing that the business people want to hear is, ooh, give us like 2 years of refactoring and we will get there. So location transparency and having software that can run virtually anywhere on planet, that's one of the core drivers for selecting cloud native as a go-to kind of a strategy. Some problems with software development you already have. You are engineering leaders, so I guess that you have actually faced a lot of stuff. Some problems will emerge with cloud native design, delivery, operations. I will be talking about that. Very quickly, fragmented delivery, single business stakeholder wants to implement a change request and you need to touch multiple IT assets across the landscape, and then you need to coordinate delivery, integration testing, release management, whatever. So the question is, can I actually help myself in this situation by designing something cloud native, by going with eventual consistency, by replicating data, by actually acknowledging that eventual consistency is a UX problem, more of a customer experience problem than a technical problem. If I can do that, well, that can help me redesign the architecture in a way so teams do own basically the business cases around their business focus. So I can solve the fragmented delivery using microservice architecture and data replication. New problem will emerge, and that's a skills gap. Suddenly you had a nice monolith running in WebSphere, packed twice a month, and everything was easy. Suddenly you have tens of IT assets and workloads that has to be deployed daily to multiple environments, to multiple cloud providers with a different configuration management. Who's gonna do that? Who's gonna automate it? Does every team in your organization have people skilled enough to be able to solve this problem? So skills gap. Team constraints is, if you want to avoid waiting times, you need to empower developers. If you will empower developers without guardrails, well, chaos emerges. Suddenly people will deploy where they should not and stuff like that. So it's always a tight balance between empowerment and guardrails / security and stuff like that. Vendor complexity is typically about, I would like you, business stakeholders or operations people will come and say, look, why don't we speed up the delivery by actually introducing external vendor? How quickly can you onboard external vendor? Regulatory, well, that's speaking for itself. So when going cloud native with your design and operations, these are problem areas you will need to actually think about, and will hit you sooner or later. Okay. Some sample, so typically, at first when you will start talking to the, I don't know, operations people, software architects, we don't need to scale, we don't need to go microservices, we don't have this problem, it's not touching us. Then suddenly you will start talking to your business people and you will find out, so the IT people, they have no goal of actually introducing scalability, but the business people, they have a goal of doubling their revenue in some time. And if you will ask them a simple question, are you able to achieve this growth within this geographic region? No. And suddenly I need to scale. We just did not talk enough. Then you will actually find out what is holding me back. How can I actually support my business operations in multiple countries? Well, I can scale the technology there because latency and a lot of different topics. We have little time. So you will need to scale technology, and then you will finally find out what is the IT asset, what is the workload that has to be turned or tiered away from the monolith. You don't need to go with the whole solution to cloud. You don't need to refactor everything at once. You just need to actually find out what is the most critical portion and start small. So how can you actually start? How can you get to cloud? Most likely you are already in some cloud, but the question is it cloud native? There are some offerings, that are designed, to abstract away complexity of actually solving cloud problems, ranging from infrastructure, delivery, maintenance, observability, all of that. Then, of course, you have a vendor-specific solutions. I will talk about ROI and TCO later, but generally, in many cases, it is a meaningful decision to say, look, we are not going anywhere from Azure anyway. I can actually play this multi-cloud game, but is it gonna happen? If I am working for some decent-sized, multinational company, they will force me to do a 5-year TCO anyway. And then what? Then how can I introduce a multi-cloud with a 5-year TCO? That's a difficult topic. Lock-in considerations. A lot of leaders and a lot of managers are super scared of whatever form of lock-in. What I would like to emphasize is it's not only technological lock-in. You are also locked into know-how, into people. And you should never actually forget to think about, am I going to deliver internal product, and is that gonna be a vendor lock to my own product? Because somebody has to finance the product. Because the difference between project and product is that product requires continuous financing. Who's gonna finance it continuously? And if I will lock my cloud native whatever into internal product that has little or no financing, you have just shot yourself to the belly. Technological choices are part of actually just going with some third party or hyperscaler or whatever cloud provider. You can, and sometimes it makes sense to think about abstraction layer, and there are multiple drivers why to do that. One of the most common reason why should I actually abstract away complexity of underlying infrastructure is that you will actually admit yourself the pure fact that AI is not there yet, and the business logic Java.NET developers, they just don't understand the cloud infrastructure. Not in the detail that it will be needed for them to fully operate, at scale. So then it makes sense, not to pay costly reskilling of all the people, or maybe starting hiring 15 DevOps engineers, which are hardly to be found. Maybe you can abstract away the complexity because you will find that your solution at the end is repeating the same things over and over anyway. Many times platform as a service will be the central point where you can, maybe not now, but in future, introduce the multi-cloud / hybrid cloud options. I can do cloud native on-prem, that's not a problem. Maybe I have to be on-prem, because we have already invested into hardware, and it's gonna take 2 years from the legal perspective actually to decommission the hardware. But I need to start now, because the complexity of the IT system is so big that it will take me 2 years to rewrite it, to re-architect it, redesign it. So then platform as a service could be a way how you can think about solving and overcoming this problem. Right now, I will work on some infrastructure in my garage. The software delivered on top of this PaaS will be ready to be migrated to the public cloud provider later on. Standardization benefits. Well, everybody wants autonomy, especially developers. They like to play. Nonetheless, the question is, are you able to afford it? What is the cost of security incidents? What is the cost of downtime? What is the cost of extra maintenance? And what is the cost of paying people 20% of their salary to have on-call duties? You need to actually calculate that, and maybe standardizing stuff can help you with this portion of problem. So if you will decide, will I go with a cloud provider and their services? Will I go with PaaS? Will I purchase something from whatever is the offering on the market? You have created a baseline. Okay, this is the way how we will leverage cloud infrastructure. And now what? The first thing that actually you have to plan is that the developers most likely have no meaningful experience in operating distributed architecture. And in most of the cases, cloud-native architecture is always distributed. They have no file system. The things are appearing and disappearing out of blue. Kubernetes will decide that it will shoot this container in the neck. Well, it's gone. And then suddenly a new one will appear with a different IP address somewhere else. Do developers actually know how to handle that problem? Do they know how to actually ensure that the event in event-driven architecture will get published, and that the state in the database below the microservice will not be actually out of sync, that you have modified the state, but because the Kafka is down, or I could not reach it for 15 milliseconds because of the cloud-native infrastructure, which is the cloud provider does not guarantee in many cases. So the event will disappear. Do they know these patterns? Most likely not. So you need to actually think about what will I need to teach them and how will I enable them and give them time and experimentation space where they can learn. There is, I would say, at least 15 to 20 different cloud-native patterns that they have not been using yet, and the know-how will not just get into their brain by accident. That learning curve is difficult. What will I do in case I have 100 million events pending in a topic and the consumer is actually, the luck is growing. So, and now what? If you do not actually give them enough space to prepare for these situations, you will face the problems in production and the business people nor your customers will like it. Most likely, you will end up in a situation that you will find out not all teams in my organization have the capability to acquire this knowledge in a meaningful time. And that's another driver. So you guys would like to do cloud native, you would like to do microservices. Well, you can actually introduce some measures. So you will show me that you are capable of learning this, and that. Otherwise, sorry, no. I just will put a quality gate there, and if the team does not meet certain quality, no way, because it will hurt you later on. Abstract away complexity, I spoke about that. Definitely, I mean, you want business logic developers to focus on business logic and solving the problems, how to deliver the feature of the product to production. Feature which is under development and is not serving your customers is useless and has value exactly 0, maybe negative. You know, so by actually abstracting away a lot of stuff they will never learn, or it will take them long, that's maybe one of the better strategies. Managed services, it depends what kind of service. Service is a very generic term. You have a service of, I don't know, I can imagine managed Redis, managed Postgre, managed whatever. That's rudimentary, I would say. You know, you can purchase that. That's a commodity. But you can have managed services of a higher value. So I have my data product as a service, and you want to consume data about my customers. There is an endpoint. There is a data product called customers, and you can consume it. The fact that it actually resides in some managed database, that's another service, but you should actually keep an eye on value-added services. And if you are not planning on selling managed Postgre, well, maybe it's better to buy that. Business logic focus, I spoke about that. You know, one of the problems that we see, especially recently, is it's not that difficult to purchase managed Kubernetes from somebody, you know. Okay, then I will find out I need to secure the namespaces. So service mesh to the rescue. I want to do canary releases. Service mesh to rescue. How do I do it? Helm charts. Very good. How many developers, Java developers, do understand how Helm charts work? Okay, so they will resort to Claude or ChatGPT or I don't know what. They don't understand that, so how they will find out that whatever has been generated as a deployment descriptor is actually valid and will work? How many times and what portion of the daily window they will spend using this unproductive thing because they are not delivering value by learning how to work with Helm charts? The value is in the business feature running in production. So you need to keep an eye on actually make your developers spend time doing business logic. I was speaking at some other conference recently, and there was some software, whatever, some research from 2020, which said that in Fortune 1000 companies, business logic or developers do spend roughly 1 hour a day writing code. Remaining 7 hours is spent somewhere completely else. So then you can ask yourself a question, why don't we meet the deadlines? Well, because nobody's coding. So how to take some decisions? First, you need to assess the competencies. Don't actually lie to yourself that we can do this and we can do that. Go out there and first assess whatever you have in-house. What you don't have in-house with some redundancy, big companies, you operate 24/7. You need at least 3 to 4 people with a single skill. Otherwise, you are not 24/7, or you are actually running a huge risk. So start by assessing competencies, what you have inside of your house, what you can actually hire. Is it feasible to expect we will hire 25 DevOps people? Yes, you will. Probably it will take 2 years, but you will. Then evaluate total cost of ownership. Why should I be hiring people? Why should I own them? Will I be able to utilize them? Is it part of the TCO of whatever I'm going to build? You cannot just say that the refactored product from a monolith, you will actually put a part outside, strangler fig pattern, you will rewrite it into microservices. What is the TCO of the solution? Do you include costs of these people, and the fact that you have put them to the center of excellence somewhere does not matter. It's not part of the business case. Somebody has to pay for it at the end of the day. And then return on investment. Calculating return on investment is a horrific job. Nobody likes it. What I actually find interesting about or intriguing about it is it will force you to think about measures. If you don't measure something, you cannot evaluate in the longer term whether you are getting better or not. Nobody has a crystal ball, and you will make wrong decisions. That's inevitable. The problem is it a one-way or two-way door? Can I actually revert the decision, and how costly reverting the decision is? If it is cheap, well, just do it. Can I measure that? When will I change my decision? On what basis? Because I saw this new technology at the conference, because a friend of mine told me that their company, they had a great success. That's completely wrong. You need to have your own measures. And thinking about ROI will bring your mind to those measures, actually. And reskilling, definitely the skills. You cannot expect that developers, business analysts, data people, that they will learn new things on the go while delivering a production project. So they have been delivering using JEE for 20 years, and suddenly you will tell them, okay, and now you will run Java in container. That's no difference, no? So just do it. You will pay a tremendous amount of money for actually getting the wrongly written stuff back from UAT tests, from integration tests, from security, and all of that will have a negative impact on your delivery deadlines, and there is a ton of hidden costs in that. So it's better to actually create a separate space, learn this. When you have proved me that you know how to work with events over Kafka, then I will let you deliver a production-grade project. Otherwise, no, sorry. Otherwise, you can be a junior on that. And the fact that you have been successfully delivering using JEE for 20 years, yes, that's true. But that there is a lot of stuff to be learned. Okay. Then there is this topic about team topologies and whatever. There is many books written on that, so I just want to touch that roughly. Basically, you will be forced with cloud native, most likely, to run multiple organizational models. It's not that the whole company will fit into single model. Build-run teams, they are good. They are good if you have people who are willing to actually bear hold the flag or bear the responsibility, feel the pain, agile, very good. If the developers are not willing to go on call with the customer, well, there is no ownership then. Sorry. So then you are not part of build-run team. These teams, this is very good, and from the delivery frequency, from the fast flow of changes perspective, I believe this is the most performing setup. Nonetheless, it is also very expensive. It's the most expensive way of actually running your company, because there is a huge duplication of roles. So then how do I actually change it? How do I work with it? Well, platform teams. What kind of a platform are we delivering? Do we deliver, well, of course, we are here on behalf of CodeNow, so are you going to write a platform that will help you with how do you write software? That's not a differentiator. Everybody in the world has this platform. and the fact that you will write your own will not help you in any way. How about having a platform that actually simplifies access to data? Because each time business feature is getting delivered, it works with the data. How difficult it is for the business, when writing business logic, how difficult it is to read, fetch with some latencies, with some SLAs, and then write and propagate data. There is a huge space for actually writing your own platform, because you cannot purchase that. Nobody in the world has your data structure. Nobody in the world has your organizational structure. And you know probably Conway's law, which says that if you will be pouring money long enough, you know, the integration architecture will just copy the communication structure or the org chart of your company. That's proven, I don't know, this is what, 50 years old claim. So platform teams focus on actually not delivering something that the platforms that everybody has. Focus on delivering platforms that are unique to you and that can help you deliver faster, therefore realizing the value sooner. Center of excellence, well, it is like, this is good, bad, and ugly. This has been here for ages. It is definitely a valid approach, especially if you have a lack of people or you have a high standardization needs, you know. So for portions of your software portfolio, it is definitely a meaningful approach to have so. I would say sooner or later you will end up having all of these. So, conclusion, well, value. Where does the value actually comes from? Well, I will do cloud native architecture, infrastructure, operations, only there where I have a fast flow of changes, where I have a push to time to market. The rest of the IT solution, well, just let it be. So it will change over the time. Focus on metrics. What you don't measure, you don't improve. And DORA metrics can help you with something, but that's that's the least common denominator that somebody has been able to put together. You have your organizational metrics and measures, and focus on some long-term value. You know, because starting whatever is typically very easy. You know, thinking about how do I finance it? How will I finance the thing in the long run? Will I do internal recharging? Can you actually sell your own platform internally for money? Who will be financing the platform next year? That's the question. So do that. Well, and shameless plug, well, we do automate hybrid cloud software delivery for large companies. So there is one platform that you can just buy because everybody can buy it, and focus on whatever is unique to you, what will help you deliver your value. Thank you. What's on there?
So thank you once again to Peter and for CodeNow to get us into the world of cloud native. And we might have now a couple of minutes for the Q&A. Nevertheless, one of the summaries to me and the takeaway, to be honest, is that basically, number one, the calculating the return of investment, meaning ROI, it's fucking difficult. We all know it. I'm not sure how many people have the experience of that. Nevertheless, the lesson learned is that it's not about finding the right figure. It's more about being sure that we actually have some sort of distilled thought about what are the right criteria, what are the right metrics to deliver the true value, right? So that's number one thing. And the number two that I would elevate here is that if you operate on top of cloud, native or public, whatever that is, you still need to have a powerful workforce to make that work. You will not find it tomorrow because it takes certain time. So what I see most of the time, either we have some sort of a DevOps combination, or we have a combination of people doing cooperating separately with the platform and so on and so forth. And each and every company has a different model based on what's their current status, basically. So perfect. Thank you again to Peter for summarizing that. And now on, I would be just curious. So how many of you is using the cloud native in your company, please? So there's a decent number of people. Thank you for that. How many of you would be claiming that you are using the cloud native properly? I mean properly. Okay, we have a couple of audacious people here. Nice. So we have the right candidates to basically challenge them. I like that. Nevertheless, do you guys have a couple of questions that we can have some sort of open topics to share and to distribute among each other? If you have a couple of questions or some of your, I would be rather saying findings or your situations that you want to open, please, we will not do the Slido. We are a decent amount of people across us, so feel free to raise your hand and we can start having a talk about it.
I can send you
yep.
my experience.
I will give you the mic, please.
Yes. Basically, we were migrating to the Microsoft Azure our data, and there is the problem. It's a one-way process because the ingress of data is cheap, but the outgress is very expensive, and at the end of the day we just use it for the data which will be stored there for 10 years and then delete it. Nothing else. So that's the same if you want to address the problem and say, okay, I want to go from Microsoft to Google or to AWS, then it will be very painful process. That's just my.
Yeah, I would just add to that maybe that data gravity is a real problem, because the only cheap way how to get the data out of hyperscaler is by truck, and that means you have to shut down the operations basically. But the way which we have seen is you can work with the data gravity in mind from the architecture perspective. So, okay, I will have a snowflake in AWS. That does not hold me back from having I don't know, storefront or some data regarding not the core business data, but the business transactions in a completely different cloud. And at the end, when the purchase is done, I can send the data, because it's tiny set of data, I can send it to the warehouse, and the big data operations are still within the single cloud provider. Why should I do that? Well, there has to be some incentive, you know, I don't know, price of compute, availability of CDN, whatever. There has to be some kind of service that will all help you.
So to double in that, on that, the other thing which I see quite often is that after the companies move to public cloud, native cloud, whatever that is that basically they wait for a miracle, meaning like, you know, we will implement the very new features in 3 months, but that is not happening. And instead of that, you wait for a year and a half to start having some sort of fruitful things. I see a couple of people that I know the companies in who are migrating from basically some sort of monolith to microservices. I would rather call it macro services, to be honest. You know what I mean? So here's yet another difference that we wanted to highlight. Basically, either you are waiting to build your army of people who are sort of knowledgeable in operating Kubernetes or whatever that is, or you sort of think twice and you resolve the problem pretty quickly by versus build, right? So that's something to really consider, because otherwise you might be getting into the fact that you don't deliver the value soon enough and your competitors will eat you for the dinner, right? So that's what's happening. Not so much in Europe, but you can bet your guts that's the case in the US and you know, in the West already. The one question I have for you, Peter, is that due to the fact that you are already part of some sort of bigger migrations towards cloud and cloud native, if you can, I'm not sure if you can be so much transparent, but give us an example of, you know, how much time it really takes to get there, plus what's the cost if I'm migrating some sort of larger, I would say, banking organization. What's your take on that?
Well, I have
don't need to mention the names, please.
I have witnessed many attempts, and most of them did deliver in the end. Well, the question is time and money, of course. I would say quickly calculating. Well, get ready to spend I don't know, like tens of percents of your nowadays operations budget. So if your yearly budget is, let's say, $40 million, it will probably not be cheaper than I don't know, 10, 15, something like that. But that's just doing numbers. I would say pivot with a small team first, and don't change everything at once. Because the worst thing that I have seen always is changing organizational structure, delivery processes, methodology, designing methodology, software architecture, introducing new people, and all of that doing at once.
And so, it's called Agile 2.0.
This will deliver in the end, but it will take longer time to actually settle down, and it will be very costly, and it's very untransparent because it's hard to measure. So suddenly my delivery rate has fallen. Why? Because of the new methodology, because of the new integration patterns, because of different people. I don't know. That's the thing. You cannot know then. So, but of course, there is a contra force to that, and there is, working in a corporate. Ginny Rometty of IBM said, corporations have this fine trait. Everybody can say no. Only very few people have the guts to say yes. So if you want to change anything in a big corporation, well, doing it the big bang way could be probably the only way. Because if you will plan on gaining a lot of yeses on the way, that's not gonna happen. Before the yeses at the beginning will be voided before you will get to the last people, So then actually changing more things at once is inevitable, and just prepare for that and communicate it transparently. It will be unmeasurable, and we will have to actually think about settling down the change for at least a year. And it will at the end cause that 20% of the people most likely will leave the company because they will actually be living in the world full of chaos after, living for 15 years in a very kind of a process-oriented, find, design, and tweaked way. So, and then you will change this. A lot of people will just leave.
Yeah, nice. Good example of that. We had a couple of folks claiming that their cloud-native environments work pretty well. So I'm just curious about what's your ecosystem? How did you get there? That's my number one thing. So if you can share your thoughts, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I can start. I basically joined a company that already was there, so that was pretty easy. Yeah, doing what I can, I'm actually, I don't know what to share about this because this is quite a big company working with sports data. So actually, I was surprised that when I joined, our cloud costs were about $1 million a month. So first thing that we did, or that I did when I joined, was to actually find out where to cut those spendings, and actually finding ineffectiveness in the cloud. It's very hard, and it's there.
It's called FinOps, right?
Yes, and actually it's a huge Excel sheet.
Okay.
So there are not many tools to tackle that.
Do you, Peter, tackle that aspect as well?
Well, I would say you have the stateless services and stateful services, right? So the stateful, I would say, yeah, Excel spreadsheet is probably the best way to go because it's very, very difficult, and you need to laser focus on one thing. You can go and start, if your Aurora spendings are actually tens of thousands of dollars weekly, most likely that should be your number one priority because in most of the cases it's just wrong reading queries, So So then spreadsheet is good. If we are talking about stateless workload, well, stateless workload can be, you need to label that basically. Labeling is the only way, and you need to be able to actually associate the labels to organizations, to teams, to business products, to the revenue streams. If you will disconnect the revenue stream from the workload which is participating on that, let's say that you will have no arguments in your hand, you know. And then labeling, of course, can be automated, and CodeNow does that automatically, basically. So, yeah.
Sorry, just one thing. Not really arguing, but yeah, labeling is good. Labeling is something we did. But then there is also, like, you have, the invoicing from the cloud providers is very hard. So you have something prepaid, postpaid, whatever, discounts. So in the end, knowing that, this machine costs me $100 a week, it's very hard to like find out the exact price.
Yeah. Maybe that's the purpose, right?
I mean, we were able to like get it down, but there are still lots of ineffectiveness, I guess.
I think that Peter has touched many points and ideas, like moving your monolith from on-prem to cloud-native development in 6 weeks with the same people. It's incredible idea. We started, or in my team, we started 4 or 5 years ago, just switching from monolith to microservice architecture to architecture which is based more on asynchronous communications, etc., etc. And it takes just maybe 2 years that people are able to, working, I would say, in a good way. And just right now we are switching that on-premise microservice architecture, microservice application to the cloud. And of course, with a huge support of some internal platform team, which is able to operate and manage infrastructure as a cloud. So managing the whole architecture infrastructure. So just I would say, let's give some time to your team, to the people, and just go step by step. That's my idea.
I'm going to ask: is your transition successful so far?
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Brave statement.
So I want to share what is my experience in this. I've seen cloud done very well in my past companies, and I've seen cloud done not so well. And I would say that the main, or what to me appeared like the key difference on when it worked and when it didn't, is that when it did work, we had a very strong platform team that knew front and back how, in our case, AWS works. And we had the support from higher management that if the platform people told the developers, no, that doesn't make sense, they actually said, hey, the expert said it doesn't make sense, rethink your thing. In some other corporations, I see that, no, the developer said that I want to put 17 XXXXXL machines. Maybe they know what they're talking about. And then 6 months later, they come back to you, hey, why my bill is so high? So I think this is not just a developer getting the skills that you talk about, but it's having a very strong platform team that does things as code, that prepares the guidelines so nobody gets off the road. Because at the end of the day, and I think everybody should this experience, when you log into a cloud account for the first time and you can spawn VMs, containers, Kubernetes, and there is nobody asking you to pay at the end of it, you feel like a kid with a credit card in a toy shop. You just, okay, well, I want everything. And it cannot be that way. You need to have somebody putting guardrails. I don't know if your experience is similar when it comes to this type of platform teams. Yeah,
well, I did deliberately took this viewpoint more from the developers today because it was more about value actually in production, which is created through code. And secondly, because in my experience, a lot of companies do focus on the infrastructure part of the problem you are talking about, and platform team there is definitely the best way to go, for sure. But often they forget that there are developers using it daily, and the developer experience is what costs a lot. If you break down your monthly operations bill, well, the developer costs man days will probably be 10 times more than what is the infra costs. So that's why I took this approach today, because then suddenly we will solve the 10% of the problem and be very efficient with managing infrastructure, and platform teams for sure way to go. But please don't forget that 90% of cost is developers.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a two-way conversation in this case.
Yes.
Like if I do something that constrains you too much, we should have a space that you can talk to your management like, hey, I cannot get my things deployed because X, Y, Z. It's described via code. I can show you why this process is complicated. And the same way I can do on my side is to tell you, hey, John Doe deployed this via code. It's very expensive. Please talk to them why this is not working.
What basically we are promoting with CodeNow for sure is basically, okay, a platform team will say, this is the way how we do Kubernetes. Network policies and whatever. And then I will just give the Kubernetes cluster to the team and say, look, the cap of the cost is $10,000 weekly. It cannot be more. It can be less, but it cannot be more. And then use it wisely. And you're on your own. And if you will deploy 100 Postgre instances into that cluster, can you justify that? It's your budget. It's your team's budget. Then, from the central management, you have the cap and you know the worst case scenario, and you always calculate for the worst case. So, and by this, actually, you can give them a bit more autonomy. But of course, you're right that the guardrails and security and all of that has to be in place. Golden path templates, etc. All of that. We would be here for many hours.
Do you have a couple of questions or situations that you want to share in terms of your own experience with the cloud, native or public, whatever comes to your mind? Yeah, go on, please. Be the word.
Maybe it is a low level or very specific detail, but it could be interesting. So it is AWS and no, sorry, it's Azure. It's Azure and blob storage with SFTP access. So we have an external provider of some software which can access SFTP. So we needed some data from them, and they only provide it through SFTP access. And we realized there is a very great feature on blob storage on Azure which could access SFTP. So we thought, okay, we could enable that. And it costs some very little, but per hour. And per month it is $200. And we wanted to enable it on some 50 blob storages because it would be convenient. But when we realized the cost, we enabled it on just one. And we want them to add it to directories.
Well,
this way we save.
That's a very good point. For example, in our experience, one thing that from the runtime cost perspective is quite often overlooked at the beginning is, okay, so we will run Kafka cluster. Very good. Then we want some multi-cloud because we want to back up something. And then you have 3 nodes over there and 3 nodes over there of a single broker. Well, that will eat you alive from the money perspective, because exactly of the egress, outgress, the whatever is going out, that will cost you a lot. And with Kafka, you typically need to write the message to 3 brokers or to some quorum, right? Bigger quorum. Therefore, you always, with every message, are paying. And suddenly, well, that's.
Lambda. Okay, we're good. Anybody else, please? Yeah, go on, your turn. Thank you, Anne.
I might have a question, kind of fundamental, because if we are talking about going cloud native, it's always kind of synonym to go to AWS, Azure, and these big companies. But I'm still wondering, if any of these big companies here try to think about something in between, like not on-prem, but not on these big companies, but to build, your own cloud in a data center. So, because that's, for me, it's a little bit more manageable in terms of the price for a long run?
I believe it's economy of scale. It can work, definitely. You need to be, your operations, I believe, need to be of certain size. So if your monthly bill for infrastructure is less than $1 million, I would say, well, probably would think twice. Because the number of people you need to actually have in place to take care of the hardware, but to operate 24/7 the managed services that needs to be provided by cloud provider. And if I want to be a cloud provider, sure, but I need to offer from storage, database, a lot of stateful services. That's a lot of expertise with a huge redundancy. So suddenly you are operating a team of 30 people just to provide the basic services. That's very costly.
Yeah, I understand, but that's kinda, you have to do it anyway, if you have Azure, and so not always you have, those teams have support.
We definitely have customers that are operating Kubernetes, managed Kubernetes on-prem, Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, Rancher on-prem, RKA2, stuff like that, leveraging their own hardware, leveraging their existing skills in managing their own infrastructure, for sure. But generally, that's being used, of course, yeah, quite often. But
so, like, the basic question was, if that's a consideration for big companies as well, or if they just, if you go like straight to the big providers, and
it is. We see that daily. And mostly it is just a reason of accounting. They have purchased hardware on a 5-year lease, and that you just cannot decommission it like that. But you want to actually deliver in a faster fashion. So then actually creating a tiny Kubernetes something within is basically the only way.
Yeah, true. But I'm kind of asking about this long run, because this is planning for a longer time than just for like scaling in 6 months.
We can ask the other guys. I can speak about our customers, but for example, I don't know, we have Foxconn as a customer, and they have their own data set to save their eggs as a cloud provider, basically.
I believe DHL does the same, right? Yeah. Go on, please.
I have a question. It's this continual conversation about Kubernetes and cost savings. So I had a few customers, let's say in this way, and the application was kind of like low scale, so it's kind of like not big. So maybe several containers, let's say in this way. And I have noticed that overhead of the Kubernetes was almost 50%. I mean, ingresses, security, connection to cloud, some other extensions of the Kubernetes I had more containers for extensions and containers for application. And I stuck to the situation, and the solutions that I found is actually using, for example, AWS has service that they fully manage containers, and you just pay for container. You don't manage Kubernetes. It's not managed Kubernetes. It's called Fargate, if you're familiar with this term. In AWS, I think there's some similar functions or even serverless. I think it's also a good option. So, did you see it on lower scale that Kubernetes is not the option, and how you solve this issue for maybe not so large customers?
Well, you're 100% correct. Kubernetes, to be effective, has to be of certain size. I would say that the problem you're talking about, it would need a little bit deeper understanding why that is happening. Because, for example, what we see quite often is that I am sending wrong traffic inside of the Kubernetes cluster. I can terminate a lot of connections on the CDN, purchase it for a fraction of costs, then actually solving the same problem within the Kubernetes cluster. So I just don't send the traffic inside, and basically you can get a reduction, I don't know, 1 to 1,000. So 1,000 connections will be served by the CDN, and only one of them will actually fall down to the Kubernetes cluster. Suddenly you have solved a lot of problems. We see that, for example, with you have different, sidecar patterns, for example, that's super expensive, does not make sense for small workload, for sure. There are better ways how to solve that, and if it is a smaller workload with a tight budget, I would assume it's also delivered by a smaller team, which can bear with a bigger responsibility. Therefore, I would give them a bit more elevated permissions, purchase them maybe a limited some kind of thing, but going lambdas for sure. At small scale, why not? Operating 1,000 lambdas delivered by 100 developers, you will want to kill yourself.
Yep. So back to me. Yep.
I would have a question. How do you deal with crappy SLAs of cloud providers?
Design for failure. I mean, that's just, if it is latency, well, that's difficult. If it is the fact that containers are disappearing, hardware is disappearing, there are network partitions and outages, well, cloud native design, basically, I have some other presentation somewhere, if I may.
Please don't.
No, okay. You need to actually think about that as part of the software architecture, as a solution architecture. It cannot be solved. It's just the way it is. You know, they do follow the approach, let it fail, you know, and they solve it by redundancy. Of course, the failure means outage. How visible it is? Well, so then you need to solve it on application layer. And I would say one of the best approaches is to think about it from the, and help yourself with the user experience. I was giving some talk, you know, about like a causality, what influence what. Is it user experience that influences the system design, or system design that dictates the user experience? And that's the way how you should be thinking about it, I believe. Because if you cannot overcome it, you just need to live with it, and by changing the user experience, it can help you a lot. You need to, long story short, you need to, for example, bring the asynchronously to the end customer. Don't promise him, I will do this on a push of the button. No, 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 no. I will receive your request, then I will do it, and then I will let you know I have done that. Of course, this programming pattern requires a little bit different solution design, but it is robust.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Hello. I want to comment on the guy who talked about having your own cloud in your own company, and we have experience trying to have like our on-prem or like our internal cloud, and it didn't go very well. Well, actually, one of the things I regret there is actually that we didn't move to the public cloud earlier. And yeah, you're right. It's like about like you can spend. We were focused on the cost of the hardware at that time and the cost of the how much we spend on the networking, and we thought, okay, public cloud is actually very overpriced, and we can calculate how much hardware we can buy, and we can save the costs. But in reality, yes, you hire DevOps people, and you need to have so many special skills in your team. You need to know how to build data center, how to build networking, how to deal with like retired hardware, how to. So that's so many specific knowledges. You need to spend so much time on this. So yes, your cost of your infrastructure is maybe less, but time to value, this is like cost of engineering, like value which you provide is much, much less, because you spend so many time on infrastructure, on supporting all those things. It takes so much time from you and so much your like, bandwidth, management bandwidth, so it's like, doesn't make any sense unless you're above certain scale. So I will not go into details right now, yeah, but.
Yeah, thank you. This is exactly what I see in, for example, a couple of the companies that I'm, serving as a fractional advisor, which is let's run our own cloud, private cloud somehow to some extent. Let's try to build an army internally. But after a couple of, I would say, years, maybe year and a half, you find out that at the end of the day, your availability is not that high in terms of the product, and you end up losing money and getting fined. That is the reality of life, right? So thank you for spotting that, because normally what we should be talking about is the cost of delay, meaning how much it costs me each and every month that the value hasn't been delivered, that 60% of the time the developers spend on trying to fix the infrastructure thingies, and that's something that again will eat you for the dinner, right? Yeah. So thank you for spotting experience because nobody talks about it, but this is the truth of the daily situation. Yeah. Do you, by the way, guys, know how much time? Yeah, there's one thing coming to my mind, which is like these days there's a couple of I would say job CVs and job descriptions flying around us, which is like each and every company is looking for a DevOps person. Which is really funny because that's basically the proof of where we are going and how the automation can save us here and the right tooling. And the other thing is, I was going to ask, what's your experience with how many people are working for the in terms of the product or feature teams versus the DevOps or platform teams? Do you have some ratio that's currently working for your company, please? Some guess, or what's your practice? Be brave. For example, in my experience, the one thing that the optimal relation is going 2-to-1, having two product people and one platform person working on the DevOps. That's the example the way and I would say the standard or the contract that we had at Muse, for example. And that has helped the company to move pretty rapidly. On the other hand, leading an army of platform people, that's yet another cost that you need to consider, of course, because it is an army in the end, right?
I would say we have like 10-to-1.
10-to-1.
10 products.
Wow. Okay.
It's like not enough.
Not enough. Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Peter, some comments on that?
Well, we because of our own business reasons, we do these measurements.
Yeah.
What I would say, what we observe is in bigger companies, 1-to-7.
1-to-7. Okay.
That's what we have measured.
Okay.
And it's the companies are not able to. They could actually introduce more build run teams. It would pay, but they cannot do that because they are held back by unavailability of those people.
Yeah.
And that's why, for example, we do what we do because we reduce that number quite recently.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Any other questions eventually?
Something to say. As Peter knows, I'm from them, but I think that I wanted to comment your comment because you say there are always these DevOps job descriptions. I think this is completely wrong, absolutely wrong discussion, This is, just we need to cover all this complexity and not to hire more doctors. We need to heal kind of the better food, we need to food the people with better food and not hire more doctors. While we are always ending up in client discussion again, we are talking 2 hours about how to cover the complexity, and the first answer of the customer is, yes, we are hiring already the first DevOps guy. Completely. So I think even these discussions, like Peter said, I just wanted to emphasize what he said, We are solving here 1/10 of the cost by long discussions, while 90% of the costs are being not even discussed. And this architecture, culture, what the customer expects, does he really wait for 2 years until you give him something?
Well, we are proposing a lot these value delivery teams, and how do you know that the team has delivered value? As I said, it's a feature running in production that is making money. So basically, if the delivery team and their value stream or their work actually ends with anything else but deployed feature in production, it's just wrong. And you are introducing delays and extra costs, which are multiples of infrastructure costs.
Yeah, perfect. So I think we are almost at the end of our talk. Of course, if you have plenty of questions, nevertheless, let's finish the conversation. Of course, we still have our networking where we can talk together about the reality of things that we want to share here openly. Nevertheless, again, thank you for you, Peter, to make the right introduction about the reality of things.
Thank you.
Close for this. And of course, thank you to all of you coming here for this open topic, because I think this is the reality of things. And my kudos for the final comment, because that's something that I see quite often, meaning, you know, talking people about the roles, meaning you are the DevOps, you are the Java guy, you are the C# guy. It doesn't really matter as soon as you deliver the value and the product. This is what we should be talking about. And here in you know, Central Europe, we are, like, I would say, 7 years in behind compared to the US. So that's the reality of things. So thank you again, once again, for coming. Please enjoy the networking, and off we go. And I'm looking forward for having a beer with you. So thank you again, and see you soon.